Hello, it's Tanya from Tinkering and Ink with Tanya, and today I'd like to show you how to make this card from start to finish. I purchased several supplies in order to make themed cards from this favorite movie and book series, this background in particular. So let's get started. To start this card, I am using the Slither Bold Prints background stamp from Hero Arts in my Misty, in the original size Misty stamp positioner. I put the background stamp on the lid and then placed, with the lid open, placed the paper, the watercolor paper, on the stamp, then closed the bottom over the top to help put that exactly on the stamp where I wanted it, since you can't use magnets with a big background stamp. Now I am going to use some liquid platinum Ranger embossing powder to create silver snakes all over this watercolor background. It's kind of creepy looking to some people, I suppose, if you don't like snakes, but I don't mind snakes as long as they aren't falling out of the door frame. Yeah, there's a whole story there. So now I'm heating with the heat tool. I love the magic of watching the embossing powder melt and create this wonderful raised shiny background. This is really going to help when it's time to watercolor this. Now I'm using gray granite and shaded spruce ink here. I squeezed it into the lid of the ink pads. These are both Stampin' Up colors. And just adding some clean water to each lid and going to town, painting away. I like to add some layers of color to add depth and dimension. I'm just laying down a layer of the shaded spruce, pretty dilute here first, to cover all of the open form snakes who are twining through this pile. Going pretty quick. I like how it beads up between some of those crosshatch marks and creates some more deep areas naturally. Now I'm coming back with some more concentrated color to add depth. This is I'm hoping to create the illusion of depth here by creating some darker snakes where you would expect them to be further away or more shadowed. Trying to add some dimension to that head by adding gradual decrease in depth towards the top, and then just trying to add some balance. You don't want it just all dark in one spot and no darkness in another. It's fun to keep paint. I could have done that for hours. Just played with the watercolor. Love it. I know, putsy, but I really do love it. So then we're going to move on to the focal image of the card. This is the teacher who likes the dark arts. He is being stamped in Memento Tuxedo Black ink on some 110-pound Neenah Solar White cardstock. And I am now going to use some Copic markers to color this. These are a bunch of the C's. I think it's C1, C3, C4, C5, and no, C4, C6, and C7. I'll have the list of the Copic markers below in the description box. So I start with the lightest, and I'm going to do his undergarments, under his cloak, in lighter blacks or grays. I like the cool grays for clothing and hair and metal objects. So there's some C3, and I'll go back to C4 for the cloak here. That's going to be the lightest color for that particular garment. and that must be the C6. Adding some shadows where you would expect to see those, and some C7 here on the darkest spots of the cloak. Go back with the C5 and lighten that up. Oh, no, we were, yep. C4, C5, C6 is what we did there. And that's a lighter shade. That's going to be the same as the tunic under there, undershirt, because that would just be the sleeves for his cloak, sticking out the ends of his cloak. And then his pants are just a little darker than his top. Some nice dark colors for his boots. And I may have been better off to start with his skin tones, but I did go right in there with the hair. What I generally do is add the highlights, the areas that I plan to make the lightest, where the light would shine, and go from there. That helps me map out the color so that I'm flicking on the mid-tone that I'm using for this particular one. And here's where I get outside the lines. That makes me a little irritated when I do that, but I'm not starting over. I'll show you a trick for fixing that later on. Now I'm coming in with what I thought was going to be the darkest Copic color and adding more flicks, and it's looking okay, but it's not quite what I was hoping for at this point. Some more flicks there, and then I'm going to come back with a darker color, the C9, because it's just not quite deep enough for me. And I had to take both ends off of my marker because it was pretty wet and I didn't want it flicking or blobbing on me. So I came back with the C5, which was the second lightest color originally, and smoothed it all out because it just didn't feel right to me. It was, you know, it's a work in progress. So I come back, did the C5, did a little of the C7 and the C9 to bring back the highlights and lowlights there. Now I'm going to use some EOO as the darkest of the flesh tone colors, and I am using that to push back some of the C colors, the cool grays that had gotten into the face area. Then I come back in with the E50 or E50 and the R20 for some cheek color, and then come back over it with the E50 to blend it a little bit. Then I use the EOO for the hands again. I used E44 and E71 for his wand. Now here's my trick for catching those areas where I went outside the line. I'm using a Signo white gel pen to go back and cover those. I'm sorry I got off the screen a little bit. And then this is a Sakura Jelly Roll Glaze pen in black. And I add that to the eyes and his buttons to add some nice shiny blackness and depth to his buttons and eyes. I'm going to wait for that black to dry and come back with a Sakura Jelly Roll Glaze pen in white and add some little highlights to his eyes. I'm going to do a quick fussy cut here. I used to hate fussy cutting. I've gotten used to it. It doesn't bother me so much. Of course, if there are dies available, I will prefer those. Who wouldn't? Worth the time for me. Speaking of dies, this is the Lovely Blossoms dies from Concord and 9th. They had this wonderful stitched hexagon. Sorry, not octagon, hexagon. My 4-year-old grandson would correct me if you'd heard that. So I die cut a piece of vellum with that die, and then I am stamping the sentiment from Expecto Stampo, which is the Ink Road Stamps company. They're one of their sets. I know, I got all over the place. I am everywhere with this card. My favorite way for adding dimension to cards is to use coaster blanks. You can get them pretty cheap. Probably the same price. You can get a box of 1,000 coasters for about the same price delivered as a roll of the Big Mama foam tape. So I just used some liquid glue to adhere that to the back of my fussy cut fella, and then weighted it down with a block until that dried. Here I am trying to figure out where I want this on the card. I decided I didn't want to cover up a ton of that background that I spent the time on watercoloring. And I wanted the head of the snake, the one head of the snake that ended up on the panel, to be up. So I tacked that down with a little bit of tear and tape and trimmed off the extra. And then I'm going to use my tape runner to adhere the watercolor panel to a card base made out of 110-pound Neenah Solar White cardstock. Give it a good rub on the back, and I hope you enjoyed that process today. Please let me know if you enjoy this style of video. Leave me a comment down in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Check out my blog and follow me on Instagram. You'll find a clickable link list below in the description box, which will help support my channel also. Thank you, and see you next time. Bye-bye.